Well, during my previous Star Wars podcast, and you can find them by searching my podcast. That didn't sound right. But anyway, before Rise of Skywalker came out, and actually when I found out that J.J. Abrams was directing it, I was a little uneasy. And I was uneasy because I knew the movie would be good, and I knew I would like it. I was just uneasy about the predictability of it, the unoriginality of a J.J. Abrams story, of a J.J. Abrams screenplay, and the fact that it would be a little too much fan service, and it would retread and bring back a lot of elements that we've already seen. Now, he did this for The Force Awakens, and I understood why he did it. It was, and I still agree with it somewhat, that it was a way to bring people back from, I guess, the disappointment of the prequels. And then Last Jedi came out, and Last Jedi is probably my favorite movie of all time. It was just so brilliant, the way it just turned the saga on its head, how it kept you on the edge of your seat, how it threw you for a bunch of different loops while still maintaining its originality. Rise of Skywalker, it just wasn't original. And the moment that I saw Palpatine, I was like, ugh. I thought Ian McDiarmid was great. I thought he looked good. The lips were a little too black, I guess, for my taste. I got like a Herman Munster vibe. But anyway, just the look of it was good. But you didn't have to bring Palpatine back. You didn't. You could have gone in so many other original directions, but instead you bring back a villain that we have already seen before. I like the fact that it was Star Wars to the extreme, that, you know, you have to go a little further with power and a little further with the fleet. But I just wish it would have been done in an original way. And just J.J. Abrams, which he has shown through The Force Awakens, is just not original when it comes to Star Wars. He's not. Rise of Skywalker is not original when it comes to Star Wars. Beautiful, beautiful looking movie. The characters were great. I mean, listen, all this being said, I enjoyed the movie. I had a good time. It had some really good moments. I just wish it would have kept the originality that The Last Jedi brought. It just got soap opera-like. The fact that Rey was a nobody, quote-unquote, in The Last Jedi was a beautiful characterization of her. It showed that anybody could be anything, you know, at least in the Star Wars world, you know, that you don't have to be of a certain bloodline. You don't have to be a relative of someone to make it. You can claw your way up. You can come from nothing and succeed. It's what used to be the American dream. But that's just another, you know, upward mobility is kind of dead. But I digress. In this Star Wars universe, it seemed, you know, that people can rise up. And the ending of The Last Jedi showed that, you know, people were starting to rise up. And, you know, Rise of Skywalker just kind of poo-pooed that. The Rise of Skywalker poo-pooed, and I'm using that word poo-pooed, a bunch of things. And Rey's lineage is no exception. That's the easy way to go. It really is. Making her a Palpatine, bringing Palpatine back, doing almost bringing the Death Star back, bringing back planet destroyers. We have seen this over and over again. We didn't need to, I think, to see this again. And I guess the fact also that, you know, you have someone like Keri Russel, who's a fantastic actress, being in the movie for, you know, 5 seconds, not really, you know, doing anything in it. She's like, you know, the Captain Phasma of the Rise of Skywalker. You know, it just there wasn't anything for it to do. Rose, they completely just didn't do anything with her. Maybe had her in a position where she can rally the resistance to make their final rescue, or to have her doing something technical or doing something mechanical, maybe her with the light speed jumping, or have her involved in some kind of romantic or like having tension romantically, either with Poe, with Finn, with Rey, like that whole. In my Last Jedi podcast, I called it a love rectangle. It could have gone there. It just didn't really pick up from where The Last Jedi left off, and there could have been something, considering Rose was introduced in The Last Jedi, and Kelly Marie Tran got a lot of flack by bullies online for it, and the way J.J. Abrams and I forgot the other writer of this movie kind of just let her go by the wayside was just inconsistent with the last movie at best, and at worst just insulting to Kelly Marie Tran and the character that was built up in the last movie. They could have had her do something. And same thing with Keri Russell. They could have had Keri Russell do something. And Star Wars is a very big deal. I've been seeing Star Wars movies with my family since I was 6 years old, when I first saw Return of the Jedi in a movie theater in 1983. And I might have seen The Empire Strikes Back in 1980. I was 4. I have like little flashes of it, but I don't remember if it was in the theater. I really should ask my parents if they took me to that. Hopefully they didn't. Who was bringing a 4-year-old to a movie theater anyway? Anyway, so I was uneasy that at the end when Ben Skywalker and Rey kissed, considering, Ben as Kylo Ren, kind of tortured Rey throughout The Force Awakens. And then, she kisses him at the end. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Like, at first I thought, this is a character going back to her abuser. Did make a point. He said, well, he was no longer Kylo Ren anymore. He was Ben, kind of like how Darth Vader was, Anakin was no longer Darth Vader at Return of the Jedi. So, and like Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi, Ben died very quick. So it would have been really interesting, and perhaps that was a direction it could have gone, where, okay, Ben's alive. What do we do with him now? I would imagine you put him on trial, whatever government's there. And how would Rey, after processing all this, does Rey still want to be with him? You can have that argument. How people change. Is this a genuine change? What does this person mean? Does the person's past define who they are now? Really good philosophical questions that they could have maybe explored in this one. And it could have been explored a little further by some real-world methods. One is a process that's known as restorative justice, and restorative justice is when the victims of a crime and the offenders of the crime, they come together, and there's a mediator, and they try to find ways to repair the harm that's been done. So there was an article that the Associated Press covered, and I'll include the links in my notes. It says, in the age of #MeToo, can there be forgiveness, second chances? So it's about people changing. And there was a quote by Leslie Wexler. She's a professor at the University of Illinois College of Law, and I'm reading from the article. So, quote, whose work has focused on sexual harassment, armed conflict, and apologies, said the idea of, quote, restorative justice, unquote, then quote again, offers a model for possible redemption. So she says, part of what should be happening here is personal, making amends to the victim, restoring the victim, and a separate part is acknowledging that the nature of this harm isn't just the individual, you are a community. That suggests you also need to be public about what specifically was wrong and what you can do better, Wexler said. And that's the end of the quote in the article. I apologize for saying quote too many times. But anyway, so that would have been a very unique, I think, area to explore. Like, just when you think the movie's over, and just when you have that cliched ending, like, oh, Ben is good now. All right. Yeah, we won again. It's like, no, Ben, this isn't over. This isn't over by a long shot. You have a lot of repairing to do. He's responsible for the deaths of millions and millions of innocent people. So, again, that might have been a cool and realistic way to approach this, because I think movies, and as they should, have grown since the original trilogy about you have good guys and you have bad guys, and that's it. I think more nuance and more detailed explanation is in order as movies start to progress in time. And then they didn't really answer how Ben disappeared with the Force. How did Leia disappear with the Force? And I was joking with my family. They said that at the end of the Revenge of the Sith, you got like 3 lines where Yoda said, "Oh, I spoke to Qui-Gon, and he's going to teach you how to do it." It was like a throwaway line, and Obi-Wan was like, "Oh, cool, all right, he's going to teach me how to do it." They never explained how anyone teaches anyone how to disappear and why other Jedi didn't disappear. So, and considering this is the last movie, it would have been nice if those ends were picked up. They never answered what Finn wanted to tell Rey. Was it that he loved her? You didn't know, and then you figured that, and that thread could have been sewn up, or whatever the saying is. That could have been answered. So it was nice to see Lando back. It's always good to see Billy D. Williams. And then the other character, I forgot her name, the former stormtrooper. That would have been an interesting story to have again. So it's like, who the movie could have explored more who we were compared to who we are. Finn was a stormtrooper. He didn't kill any innocent people, but he certainly helped build the First Order machine. Again, he was taken as a child, that's all he knew. But to explore that, the things that they're responsible for doing, and they could have explored that with the other stormtroopers that were there. But instead, they just retread the same things over and over again. And how did Palpatine's fans all of a sudden get in that stadium that he had? They just seemed to kind of come out of nowhere and with all this chanting. It would have been interesting to see how the cult of Palpatine was around. Maybe without having Palpatine, or maybe someone could have been inspired by Palpatine and gone in another direction. The fact that Palpatine created Snoke was just kind of like, oh yeah, no big deal. It would have been interesting to explore that. It would have been interesting to explore Kylo Ren's journey, and it was nice that he was redeemed at the end. That Harrison Ford, I did not know he was going to be in it, and that was a really touching scene. It kind of explained that he's no longer Kylo Ren, and I thought it was a good way to do it. I just wish it would have been explored a little more. And I knew when Rey was, in the trailer, when I saw that Rey was, it showed like the Rey with the double-bladed lightsaber, that would have been giving too much away. But that was kind of cool to see like the dark side Rey, like what could have been. Like I said, overall it was good. And then, I didn't get my wish, because when I saw the trailers and you heard Palpatine's voice, I was hoping it was a ghost or it was a recording or something, and it wasn't. It was actually him. And I remember when I was a kid, maybe I was like a young adult, when it had Dark Empire, which was, a clone of Actually, they never really said how Palpatine came back. One character who was one of the Hobbits in Lord of the Rings, he had another throwaway line. Oh, it was a clone. Would have been interesting to see how he was actually cloned. I guess it was a clone. What did they find? There was a comic book called Dark Empire. It's now in the Legends section, because it's no longer canon. But it had that, and it just kind of, it brought Palpatine back, and bringing Palpatine back, and I was mad then, and I'm kind of mad now. It kind of negated everything not everything, but it negated a lot of things that Luke did in Return of the Jedi. It kind of delayed Palpatine. And it just would have been nice to see something or someone new. They brought the Death Star back, they went back to Endor, and all that, is good, but then it's like a fine line between paying tribute, fan service, and then just retreading. And I think Rise of Skywalker, kind of crossed the line when it came to that. So, and how did Kylo Ren or Ben get healing powers all of a sudden? oh, was it like because it was passed on to Rey? And how did Rey get healing powers all of a sudden? I wish they would have just explained it more. And that maybe that could have been a line or two, like your powers are growing and you can do this or something. You know, maybe it's a little nitpicky, but yeah, I cried with Carrie Fisher, and I thought they handled Leia's death really, really well. It was a touching moment, and again, they used footage of Carrie Fisher, and they definitely did what they could with it. I liked seeing Luke. I like how, that line of Luke's, saying I was wrong. I wonder if that was like a little bit of a knock of The Last Jedi, but The Last Jedi did say that, yeah, Luke was wrong to stay all that time, and he was traumatized, and he had to, he was just, processing it in the only way that he could, or one of the ways that he could. It would have been nice if he got some help, maybe from Leia, instead of just isolating himself like that, which, traumatized people do tend to do. So, it was nice to see Luke again, and how, they drew from The Last Jedi, how in The Last Jedi, like, all of a sudden Force ghosts are starting to, like, touch things now, and they can affect certain things in the living realm. So, but it was nice to see Luke, how he was a combination of the crabby old man from The Last Jedi, who I liked the crabby old Luke, and how Luke, became this stoic warrior at the end of The Last Jedi, and they kind of had a good combination of those two people. I like how Rey changed her name to Skywalker, and that the twin sunsets at the end was such a beautiful shot, and her and BB-8 was such a beautiful shot. I like the C-3PO B story where 3PO lost his memory. It would have been nice to have his memory wiped a little bit, but it's like they did this where you think Rey, like, had Rey died, that would have been something. Had Rey died and Kylo Ren and Ben lived, that would have been interesting. But no, Rey is brought back to life. It would have been interesting to see C-3PO the way that he is now, but no, C-3PO was brought back to life. So it's just like, it's kind of lazy. It's kind of these lazy storytelling devices. So I just want more exciting, dangerous, and unpredictable Star Wars, and Rise of Skywalker was exciting, very exciting. And I love these characters, and I love the Star Wars universe. I've been following the Star Wars universe since I can't remember not doing it, and I'm 43 years old. So that was good, but it was safe. It was safe, and it was predictable. And, people like that, I don't mind it, but it's not something it'll be nice to watch, but it's, I guess I just wanted a little more, but still, very, very good, very good. So I'm trying to think of anything else. Oh, it would have been something if Chewbacca died. That would have been like, holy fuck, that would have been dangerous. But no, here we go. We think he's dead, but he's really not. Rey, we think she's dead. Oh, he's really not. It's all these things that go on. So it's just little things like that. So I think that's it. I'm sure I'll have like a bunch of podcasts on this. Once I process it. I don't know where this stands. Last Jedi is definitely better than this. This compared with Force Awakens, I don't know. Like, Force Awakens, because it was the first movie, it was just so exciting just to see Han and Leia back again, and Harrison Ford and Chewie and all that back. So I don't know. I still have to think. I do think Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and A New Hope are better than Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker with Force Awakens, I don't know. I thought Rogue One was better than Rise of Skywalker. Rise of Skywalker, I really enjoyed Solo. I thought it was a lot of fun. It just didn't have any stakes to it. I thought it was fine. I don't know with Rise of Skywalker and Solo yet. Rogue One is better. And then as far as the prequel trilogy compared to Rise of Skywalker, yeah, there were no cringy moments in Rise of Skywalker. Well, maybe when Ben and Rey kissed. I wish that relationship would have been explored a little more. They started it in Last Jedi. I wish they would have started with that. Maybe a little time going through, and Rey being conflicted. So I guess that kiss with them, a little cringy. I can understand why. Again, that would have been something to explore. So probably better than the prequel trilogies. But like looking back at the prequel trilogies, while I think Lucas had an original idea, maybe the execution wasn't the best. And I think Lucas, had he been given, the chance to write a new trilogy, would have taken it in such a weird direction. It would have been interesting. I think he would have done something with the Wills, who are people who, are the puppet masters who control people through the Force. I think that's what the Wills are. That would have been out there. But again, that would have not been safe. The prequels, in some of its glory, were not safe, explaining the politics of the era. That was an interesting choice, a brave choice. I just don't think the execution was the best. It, if anything, was a little slow moving, and a few cringeworthy moments on that. So I think the chemistry between Rey and Poe and Finn were very good. I wish they would have explored that a little more. Along with Ben Skywalker in the mix. I thought that they handled Carrie Fisher well, but I said that already, so I'm just like repeating myself now. I just saw the movie, so like it ended like a half hour ago. So I too am processing this, and I'm sure I will pick this up some other time, some other podcast. Who knows? Maybe some podcasts with other people. So anyway, if you like this podcast, please rate and review. And you can find me on Twitter at MMAM Podcast. You can find me on Facebook at MMAM Podcast. You can email me at MMAMpodcast@gmail.com. All right, everybody, may the Force be with you always.